Welcome to the Fermented Homestead. If you're new here, my name is Anna, and on this channel, I'm sharing our journey of learning how to turn our home into a homestead. Today, we are going to be pickling beets. I'm probably, if I have enough beets, I'm going to be doing a versus kind of a fermenting versus pickling video. But if I don't have enough beets, then it's just going to be a pickled beet video. I do have a video on making fermented beets. I will link that one up there for you if you're interested. I'll also try and remember to leave it at the end of the video and or down below. So the first thing that we need to do is we're following the recipe from the Amish canning cookbook, and it is their pickled beets recipe, and it calls for 7 pounds of beets, 4 cups of white vinegar, 5% solution, half of a teaspoon of pickling or canning salt, 2 cups of sugar, 2 cups of water, 2 cinnamon sticks, 12 whole cloves, and 4 to 6 small onions. And then the first thing that we need to do, it says to trim the beets, but I think if you're boiling these, I think you're not supposed to trim them. But I'm gonna go ahead and trim them down, and just leave a little stub. These 2 bags are ones that I got from my garden, which I'm super stoked about. But I didn't have enough for the recipe, so I went ahead to my local co-op and got these. So we're not gonna peel them. That's what the next process is going to help make much easier. And these ones are already cleaned. I need to clean the ones I just bought today. So that's pretty much all we're gonna do is just trim them up and put them in the pot that is already over there warm. And we're just gonna start boiling these, and we're gonna boil them for about, I think it's a half hour to 45 minutes, right? 25 to 30 minutes. We're going to cook them until they're kind of like fork tender, kind of like a potato, but a little bit firmer. Like you can just kind of easily get the knife through. You don't want it to be like super mush. So let's do this. The beets are over there and they are boiling. Well, they're almost boiling. So now we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna ferment the beets that I do have left. Actually, now I'm looking at it, it's a really big jar. Hold on. So we'll use this one instead. It's a little bit of a more appropriate size. You can peel them if you wish. I do not wish to do that. The only part of this that I typically tend to kind of peel is the top where it's been sticking out of the dirt. That can be kind of rough and just an unappetizing texture when you're eating it raw. Other than that, it really just doesn't bother me, and you have to kind of bear in mind that the bacteria that you're trying to culture to process these is on the skin. So if you take off the skin, it can be a bit more of a challenge to actually get these things to ferment. So just throwing that out there, do what you wish, but this is what I'm doing. And so I'm just cutting off the tops here. And come on. And then this one is the only one that I noticed when I was inspecting it that it had kind of some funny spots on there. So I'm gonna trim off those parts when I'm cutting it up. All right, so into the jar, I really don't know what's gonna happen. I'm gonna put a couple cloves in there. We'll see how it goes. I'm kind of nervous because the antibacterial property of the cloves, but I have to know. I've never tried it. And since these are the 2 spices that I'm seasoning the pickled beets with, I just have to know. Have to know if these are not able to be used. I have to know for myself. So I'm gonna know for myself, and I'll tell yourself. If that satisfies yourself, then you know. And if it doesn't satisfy yourself, try it, see if it works for you. That's what I do. Okay, so all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through and trim off these top parts like I was saying. Now all I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna cut it up into kind of bite-sized pieces. It's totally up to whatever you want. All right, so now what we're gonna do with this is we're just gonna make up the brine, and all we're gonna do with that is I'm going to mix together a quart of water and 2 tablespoons of salt, and that will get me to my personal desired ratio. That's kind of how I like to do it. A lot of people, not a lot, some people like to weigh everything. Like they'll put the water in here. Shoot, let's try it, shall we? Okay, I'm gonna show you what they do. I don't usually do this, but if you're really interested in being very particular and specific, I'll show you how to do this one. So We're gonna tear out the scale here. We're gonna dump everything in. Come on. Come on. There we go. And so we're gonna set this to the grams, which is 884 grams. So we want a 2% ratio. So what we're gonna do with this is we're gonna put in 16 grams of salt, and that will be 2% ratio. See? So actually I think I'm gonna do 18 because it's 884. So we're gonna pretend that's 900. And then, so we're just gonna do 18 grams of salt. And for this salt, you can use kosher salt, pickling salt, sea salt, Himalayan salt, Celtic salt, whatever salt that you want except iodized salt. Don't use your normal table salt. Use something that does not have iodine in it. Iodine is antibacterial, and all the anti-caking agents and crap that they put in it, you just don't want to have that in your food. This one is just sea salt that I get at Costco. What we're gonna do with this now, we need a pot. We are gonna take this, and we're gonna pour off all the water into the pot. See how quickly that turns color? It's crazy. Okay. Stop the beets from pouring out. Stop the beets. And we need to get the beets out that fell in. Come on. Oh, goodness sake. So now we gotta tear this again, and we're gonna get this to 18 grams. Actually, I wanna weigh it because I wanna measure it too. Oh, jeepers, I was over salting it. But actually, no, I'm not, because there's no way that this is a quart of water. So I'm probably pretty spot on. There we go. Okay, so now we're just gonna heat this up just barely enough to dissolve this salt. That's all we're aiming for. So that's all we're gonna do with that. You do not wanna walk away from that. It only takes not even a minute. So just be extra careful with that, because if you get it too hot, you're just gonna have to, two things are gonna have to happen, or two things will happen. You'll not notice that it got too hot, you'll pour it over and you kill all the bacteria that is on the beets. Bad thing. Second thing that can happen is you're just gonna have to wait, and so it's gonna take you longer to actually be able to do this. So just be kind of careful. So pour this over it, give it a little swirl just to make sure. Because normally you can see through this, but with the beets, it's hard to see if all the salt is dissolved. There we go. And that's pretty much it. That's all we're gonna do with this. I'm gonna set this in the corner. I'm using these flip top. It's like a Fido style jar, but it's Kilmer's brand. I think it's like the American version of it. With this, it is self-burping, so I don't really have to do anything with it. You can cover it with something. I don't have anything to cover it with, so I'm just not going to. And I found in my experience that I don't have to do that. It's not an issue if you're using the proper kind of lids, which would be this or the mason top, the ones that have the little pipes on top that automatically vent the CO2 out. If you are using just a regular old canning lid top, you will have to come through probably at least once a day, maybe even more often if it's a pretty active ferment. You have to come in, you're gonna have to burp it. And basically what you're gonna do with that is you're gonna come in, you're just gonna release the air. It'll make like a popping or like a hissing sound. You just real quick like that, letting the air out. And you don't want to leave it open, because then you're gonna leave it open for bacteria and mold to get inside. And if you are fermenting like this with this type of a lid, you absolutely need to make sure that everything within the jar is underneath the, You absolutely need to make sure that everything within the jar is underneath the brine. If it is not, it is very, very likely to mold and go bad. And you're just gonna waste your time. It's gonna be really frustrating, and you're gonna wanna cry. At least if you're really into ferments like I am. If it makes you more comfortable, if you're fermenting with this style lid, totally come through, just give it a little pop and then close it. Same principle as burping it, but this one will automatically vent and release it. I honestly don't know how long I'm gonna let this ferment for. It's probably gonna be pretty close to the 4 weeks that the beets are gonna be pickling for, but we'll see how that goes. And basically I'm gonna, after about a week, I don't think it'll be any sooner than a week, I'm gonna come through and I'm going to taste test it. First, I'm gonna smell it, and if it doesn't smell like anything like it, then I'm not even gonna try. But if it starts to smell like, fermented beets, pickled beets, if it starts to have that kind of lacto-fermented smell to it, then start taste testing it. And then whenever it's right, that's when I'm gonna go ahead and toss it in the fridge. But I like things to be very long fermented, so it's probably gonna be a little while. One thing that you can also do, you can't really do it with beets, it doesn't work, but you can use these pH test strips. These things are fantastic. You just dip them in there, and then you can hold up this little tip thing, will change colors. You can see here, that blue will change colors, and you can correlate it on here. You want it to get below a 4.0 pH as quickly as possible, and that is going to make you the safest ferment and least likely to mold, least likely to go funky bad. With the beets, I have noticed it can get slimy. All that means is you need to ferment it a little bit longer. Don't freak out, don't panic. Unless you have like a forest of mold growing on the top of the jar, don't panic. Just let it ferment longer and it will automatically thin out. I've come to find that out and found it to be very true. Just let it ferment a little bit longer. That's all you have to do. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not bad. You can consume it right then and there. But if you just let it go for a few more days, it'll be thin, so don't worry about it. All right, so we're gonna let those continue to ferment, and then I will bring you back we'll let those boil, and then I will bring you back and we will start the next process. But the fermenting, we're done. That's all there is to it. That's the nice part about fermenting. It's quick. It's been quite a while, I'm not gonna lie. Like we got distracted with some other stuff, and so now we're ready to come back. The beets have been cooled, and they are ready to be peeled and take the next step. We're ready to make the brine. And so I think the next thing we're gonna do is make the brine, because peeling and chopping up the beets should be a pretty quick process. So we can just let this stuff start to kind of come to a boil while we're chopping up that other stuff. So we need 4 cups of 5% vinegar, and then 2 cups of water, 2 cups of sugar, and then we're gonna put this on the burner, and we are going to stir it. Oh, salt, I need salt. 1/2 teaspoon, 1.5 teaspoon of pickling or canning salt. Doesn't seem like that's gonna be enough, but we'll let it ride. We'll roll with it. We'll see how it goes. So all we need to do with this is just, people call this a plate. There we go. Hands are washed, and we are ready to peel beets. There we go. And when you peel them, the reason that you peel them is the reason you boil them is because it kind of peels really easily. It would probably peel a little bit easier if I'd gotten to it a little bit sooner, but it still peels just fine. If you care about having stained hands, wear gloves. And if you have any troubles getting the peel off, all you need to do is just to kind of take your knife, get under the peel, and kind of pull it like that. Okay, then it says to get the stem off, and then it says to cut it into, where's this? Cut it into thin slices, about 1/4 inch thick. Peel and thinly slice onions. I forgot about the onion part. All right. So we're just gonna cut that. There we go. We got all the beets cut up. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna make our little pouch of spices that we need to put in there. And I just didn't seem like it was enough brine. So maybe I have a little bit too much beets, I don't know. But, so I didn't double the recipe, but I added half more. So I added 2 more cups of vinegar, 1 more cup of sugar, 1 more cup of water. And so, yeah. And now this calls for 2 cinnamon sticks, so we're gonna put in 3. And 12 cloves, so we're gonna put in 18. That's actually 20. Who's counting? Put the spices in a spice or cheesecloth bag, add vinegar mixture, add to vinegar mixture. Okay, and then once that comes up to a boil, we are gonna put the beets in there and we're gonna cook it for 5 minutes, and then I'll bring you back. That was dangerous. Really vinegary. Okay, so the beet mixture has cooked for 5 minutes. Now we're ready to load the jars. All right, So, oh, we're supposed to take this thing out. I don't think it matters when we take it out. But, do what it says. There we go. Now, we just need to take and spoon the mixture into the jars. I'm going to do all the beets and I'll get all the whole mixture out, and then I'm going to come through and top it off with the brine. It's really good. It's like all of it, not all. All right. This is some potent, just wow. So now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna top this off by filling it up to a 1/2 inch of headspace. We're gonna get, right now we're just doing kind of roughly, and then we're gonna come through and make it exact because we still need to debubble. Okay, so the original brine amount was plenty. I just should not have gone and added the extras, but lesson learned. Just so you know, if you follow the recipe, follow it exactly, because I don't know if I had exactly the amount of the beets, but whatever I had was perfect. Now what we're gonna do is something called debubbling. If you're new to canning, this is certainly not any kind of a how to can by any stretch of the imagination. I am not a perfect canner, but the next step is to debubble, and you do that with a chopstick or ideally a debubbler. That's what it's for. And we're just gonna go around the sides and kind of give it a little squish. There we go. I should have my burner going, huh? All right, so the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna bring it in and we're gonna top off each of the jars to the 1/2 inch headspace mark. So the next step that we're gonna do is we are going to wipe the rims with vinegar water, and this is very important. It's gonna get any leftover particles off there or any sugars. If you're doing different kind of canning, it'll cut any of the grease or the fat off of it, which is really, really important to get a good seal. So we're just gonna do that real quick. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take our lids. You wanna make sure that you're washing your lids before you put them on. And we are going to put these all on our jars here. There we go. And our rings. You want to tighten them fingertip tight, which is as tight as you can get them with these 3 fingers. Okay, now we're just going to load them up into the canner. And you want to make sure, since the brine is hot, you want to make sure that the water is, fairly hot. You want to kind of just start to see steam coming off of it. I think it's 180 degrees. Don't quote me on that. I would go a little bit less than that just to be safe. But you don't want to have cold water because you can crack the jars with the temperature difference. You want to have hot jars because it's the same thing. You can crack jars. So we have all the jars in the canner, and so now what I did is I turned it up to high, covered it with the lid. We are going to let it come up to a boil. Once it hits a rolling boil, we are going to set our timer for 30 minutes. And that is for my elevation, your elevation. The timing depends on the elevation. Same thing like when you're pressure canning, where the pressure weight will depend based on your elevation. Here, you'll cook it for longer if you're at a higher elevation. So for my elevation, which is under 1,000 feet, it is 30 minutes. And that only starts once it is up to a rolling boil. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and do that. We're gonna process it for 30 minutes. When that 30 minutes is up, we're gonna turn it off and take the lid off, let it rest in there for another 5 minutes, and then we're gonna start to take them out of the canner. All right, so welcome back. It has been about 2 months since we have made our pickled beets and our fermented beets, and it is time to give these a try. I think that these ones probably Robert's gonna like really well. This one's a little bit iffy. He's not super into fermented foods.
What's the difference?
It's fermented instead of pickled. This is vinegar pickled, and this is fermented pickled. It's been 2 months. You're supposed to let these go for at least a month. And this one has just been sitting in there for this whole time. I've not put it in the refrigerator yet. It has just been doing good. I've been kind of keeping an eye on the top of it and making sure that none of the mold forms on top. And we've been totally fine with it. So we are going to give these a try and compare and contrast, and we'll see how we like them. What does it smell like?
Pretty good.
Whoa. That's interesting. But I don't know if you could hear it, but when he popped the top on that one, it did have a little bit of a fizz to it. I have come through and also popped the top while I've been looking at it every once in a while, and it's been totally fine. There we go. Got that sound we're all looking for. Smells good, looks good, nothing weird growing.
Smells a little bit more savory smell.
Oh, this is mine. What am I doing?
Smell that. Different, totally different.
A little bit. I wouldn't say totally
different. A
different.
little bit on
You don't like it?
Okay.
All right, so this one has not been cooked, so it's likely going to be much crunchier. And I already know I like it because I love this stuff. All right.
Let's see. What's going to happen? What's going to happen?
It's actually not as crunchy as I thought it would be. It's not mushy, but it's not like fresh beet crunchy. It's fermented beet crunchy.
It's not bad. It's just different.
I'll give you that one. And these ones are par cooked, and they have been just left to vinegar ferment. Right. Vinegar pickle.
Oh, this is okay. Wow. All right. They're both good. This one is more like a sweet dill pickle kind of vibe. This is more like a earthy type of a, how can I describe it? Not quite a dill pickle, but it has its own floral taste to it. It's like a perfume, basically. Sort of a perfume type taste. Well, if you could taste perfume. Try it, you'll see. You'll see.
Yeah.
But I think I like this one better.
I'm so stoked by that. You have no idea. Oh my gosh. I would say the same thing. I prefer the flavor of this one. This one's a little bit too sweet for me. I think probably next time I don't remember what the recipe was that I used. I think I put sugar in there. When I make that again, I'll probably just not put quite as much sugar. I enjoyed this one much more. And this one will probably not last terribly long. This one we'll probably end up eating anyways because it's good. And this one is also another added benefit to this one is that it is shelf stable. Whereas this one, you have to keep it in a cool place. You don't necessarily have to put it in a fridge. If you have a place that'll be like 55 degrees without intervention, you totally can do that. I don't have that place. So for me, it's either at room temperature or it's in the fridge, at least for now. Maybe someday we'll have a root cellar, I hope. But for now, this has to go in the fridge. So this one has the added benefit, food preservation, and it's shelf stable, so you don't have to keep it in the fridge except after you open it. Now we have to keep this in the fridge until we finish it. But all the other jars that we made earlier can all be totally shelf stable, and we don't have to have any concern with it. I hope that was helpful. If you guys have done any fermenting or pickling with beets, let me know how you guys like to use it and what you do with it in your kitchen. I would love some ideas, especially for the pickled stuff, because we do have a lot of pickled stuff, and I want to make sure that we're going through it. So let me know down below, and let everybody else know down below what you guys are using your pickled beets for, or whatever ideas that you have seen other people use them for. I would love to know down below. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.